webinar. Today we're going to be talking about the women's involvement in the future of HQCJ. And that's the topic and why it matters. And I'm going to explain to you why it is important from the very beginning. Well, because the judiciary as the environment, apart from having to be professional, apart from following all the principles of integrity, it also has to be gender sensitive and non-discriminatory on the gender basis. So the All Ukrainian Association of Judges, of female judges, which is the co-organizer of the today's webinar, together with the Selection Commission for HQCJ candidates, have initiated this webinar, this meeting online for women who represent the judiciary in Ukraine, and also for women who represent legal professions and legal science. So we have some of the professionals already here who have a lot of achievements in terms of legal science. What we are trying to do and what kind of outcome we would like to produce with this webinar. So first and foremost, I would like to share some of my personal expectations about this event and the expectations from the Selection Commission. Of course, we could not have invited everybody, all the commission members, I mean, but I think nevertheless, we're going to be able to discuss so many different issues. The two commission members who will tell you a bit about how they see their objectives. They will be able to answer some of the questions you might ask and some of those that you have already asked. So they will also tell you about the selection process from the standpoint of gender sensitivity. In my welcoming remarks, I would like to introduce to you Mr. Stephen Markman. This is the Selection Commission member from Michigan. He's a retired justice, and he has worked in Michigan in that courts since 1989 till 2021. Between 1995 till 2009, he worked as a justice of the Court of Appeal in the state of Michigan. He was the Attorney General in Michigan. And since between 1985 and 1989, he served in Washington, D.C. He was responsible for the legal policy at their Department of Justice and also selected a lot of federal judges. So I think he has a lot of experience to share with you. And participation in such a selection commission is not something brand new for Mr. Markman because he has done this a lot. I'm sure this will contribute to the success of the selection commission because of his vast experience and thanks to it. I would also like to mention here that Mr. Stephen Markman, Mr. Markman's professional career also was about Ukraine a lot because he also participated in the development of the Ukraine's constitution, which is believed to be one of the best constitutions in Europe. And that was somewhere between 1992 and 93 when Ukraine was finally independent and therefore it needed to develop its own constitution. Like it is right now already, because the importance of the selection process is very difficult to overestimate because there is lack of judges in Ukraine. There is real deficit of judges. That's why it requires us to act and do something about it. It is my pleasure to also introduce to you Yevhen Mezentsev, a colleague of mine, colleague of ours, I would say. He is also a member of the Selection Commission from the Sixth Administrative Court of Appeal. And before that, he had worked in the prosecutor's office He used to be the top manager of one of the law firms, and he represented interest of entrepreneurs. So I think his experience is also very valuable for us. All in all, he has worked for more than 17 years as a judge. He has worked at the Commercial Court of Appeal in Donetsk region between 2005 and 2011. He was also deputy head of the Donetsk Court of Appeal. He also served as a judge, and I know that there are a lot of people that you have worked with in the administrative jurisdiction. He was also a judge of the Dnipro Administrative Court of Appeal in 2012 and 13, and he was also in charge of the Kiev Administrative Court of Appeal since 2013 till 2014. And since October 2018, he was moved to be a judge at the Sixth Administrative Court of Appeal, where he was the deputy head of the court till October last year. And Mr. Yevhen also represents the judicial community in our Council of Judges. Used to do that. Oh, you're not no longer representing them. No, I don't, because I was the deputy head of the court and I could not combine the two positions at the same time. That's why I used to represent the interests of the judiciary at the Council of Judges. And I've done that twice, actually, in my career. So these are our commission members today. And we are so much appreciate that they are here with us today, and hopefully our expectations will all be satisfied. Well, I would like to move forward, and I'm going to give the floor now to Mr. Yevhen Mezentsev for the welcoming remarks. Please, Yevhen. Thank you very much, Nadia. Hopefully, we're going to be able to work in a very fruitful manner today and answer your major questions that you might have, dear colleagues. Because our work right now is to build awareness in the broadest professional legal circles possible regarding what we expect from the selection process. We want to have highly professional people who will be encouraged to participate in the competition. We already received some of the criticism that in our commission, there are only males. Mainly our females. We do have females, but they are our assistants. However, there are no commission members who are females. It's not that somebody just wanted to have only men on the commission. It's a question not to us, but to the Council of Judges and to the, yes, indeed, to HQCJ. And that's why I think it wasn't their motivation to have men only on the commission. But we nevertheless realized the very important role that we have to play in this process. And absolutely all our commission members have the same understanding that we need to encourage women's participation in the selection process. It's because we are about, and we actually want to have proportional representation. However, some of the legislations on equal rights and opportunities for both men and women and our electoral legislation sets certain quotas for each of the genders whenever they are selected to any kind of authority. Right now, for HQCJ, there are no quotas on a gender basis. And I must assure you that we absolutely clearly realize that the number of men and women has to be balanced. And it should be in line with all the best international practices. From my own experience, the broad representation of genders and specialties in any kind of authority is of crucial importance. This way we can make sure everything functions properly. And of course, it's going to contribute to its quality. I've seen so many situations when they try to select only judges of a specific gender, of a specific age. That means the choice is limited. It means such a group of people will be thinking in a very similar manner. I mean, while in the democratic society, it is required to have the diversity of opinions. If there is no diversity of opinions, if there are no differences in people's attitude to the same thing, this may disrupt the work of the commission, but we will be pursuing equal balance. In the future selection process, the commission members will be discussing, and we have discussed that already publicly, that the ratio between lawyers and judges, I mean, acting judges or retired ones, and the rest of the, so to say, legal professionals who can be candidates to HQCJ, we need to have 16 and 16. So 16 judges and 16 other professionals. And so at least 32 people will be recommended to HCJ. And we are deeply convinced that undoubtedly these 32 people have to have proportionate representation gender-wise. So ideally, we of course would like to have equal representation. And this is, of course, going to be challenging. While our main principles of the commission are set out in our slogan, independence, integrity, and transparency. Of course, this transparency ingredient is about equal representation of males and females, judges and non-judges. In my personal opinion, we are trying to do everything to do that in a proper manner. I think women's participation in HQCJ after the selection process will only contribute to the quality of the job that will be delivered by this commission. Women are much more wise sometimes in approaching many challenges. They are not inclined to take as many risks as males are sometimes. And I don't know any official statistic yet. Unfortunately, I don't have any statistical information in front of me right now. I'm not sure about the corruption risks. How many corrupt perpetrators are males and how many of them are females? I think there are much more males there than females. Yes, indeed, we're going to be talking about statistical information and gender balance. Thank you very much for very kind words. And it is my pleasure to now give the floor to Stephen Markman. Justice Markman, please, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much for the opportunity to be here this morning. At least it's early in the morning here in the United States. And I'm honored to be here with my colleague, Judge Mazantsov. And again, thank you for the opportunity to be here. I'm about 6,000 miles away, and it's always amazing to be able to speak with people so at such a great distance. It's a very distinguished audience, and I recognize that. And it's 5 degrees below zero Fahrenheit. We don't have centigrade in the United States, at least we don't know what it means. But I look forward to returning to Kyiv before long, where it's much warmer than I think it is here in the United States right now. As was indicated several minutes ago by President Stefaniev, I was the judge selector for two presidents many, many years ago. Two presidents of the United States, 45 years ago, a very long time. And we selected many women to be federal judges at that time, but there were not as many women who were lawyers back at that time as there have gradually come to be in the United States. At the time that I was selecting and recommending judges to the president, there were many women lawyers, but many of them were too young to be considered for judicial positions because they had just entered the profession. And just as we require that candidates for the Qualifications Commission have practiced law for 15 years, it was also the case that very few lawyers would be appointed to the judiciary who were 25 or 30 or even 35 years ago. So they needed to have experience then, and many women lawyers had not sufficient experience at that time. But things have changed over the years, and the proportion of women on the judiciary in the United States has grown very steeply during that time. Today, we have 55% of women in our law schools of the United States. We have 47% who are professionals in our larger law firms. On the federal court, we have 33% who are women and growing very steeply. And on our state courts, we also have 33% who are women, and that number is also growing very steeply as women come to be institutionalized in the legal profession the same as men. On the court that I served on, the Supreme Court of the state of Michigan, we had, for most of the time I was on the court, either 3 or 4 women colleagues, and they were at various times the Chief Justice of that court. So Michigan was a state in which women were very fairly represented. My message today is simple, and it is that if there are people that you respect and admire and who you think would contribute to the Qualifications Commission and eventually to the judiciary of Ukraine, people who serve your country well by strengthening the integrity and the honor and the competency of your judiciary, perhaps even yourself, because this is such a distinguished audience, they must be encouraged now to apply for a position on the Qualifications Commission. Your interest must be communicated, and it must be communicated soon to the Selection Commission, since our period of application has already begun on February 4th, and it's scheduled to end, I think, Judge Mezentsev, on March 4th. So you are encouraged to apply, and you're encouraged to apply very soon. We do not recruit individuals. We can only do as we're doing today, which is to encourage individuals on their own initiative to apply to the Selection Commission. We understand the uncertainties of the moment, but our process continues forward and will continue to move forward until it's completed. And that application period is nearing its middle point, and you need to act with some expedition and promptness if you or persons that you know wish to apply for a position on the Qualifications Commission. It's no secret what our commission is looking for. And we have 6 commissioners, and they all have different experiences and different backgrounds and different values and different understandings of what makes a good judge. But they are in agreement with the fact that we are looking for judges and judge selectors of the highest integrity. We are looking for integrity and competency, and then we are looking for more integrity. And then we're looking for still more integrity. That is the single most important thing that we're looking for in the Qualifications Commission. People who possess that integrity and competency and who themselves can identify judges who will possess that same competency and integrity. We believe that in a democratic system such as Ukraine, the people determine their own futures. There are no shortcuts. You have a strong constitution, I believe. Your institutions are becoming, your judicial institutions are becoming stronger every day. But equally, what is required are strong people to serve on those institutions. And as I look around this group, I know that there are such people, and we need you to participate in this process, either to volunteer on your own or to assist others who you have regard for and admiration for to participate in the competitive selection process that we have. Your institutions, your constitution, and the strength of your people must come together if this is going to be a successful selection process. And as Judge Mezentsev has indicated, we have a merit system. There is no discrimination. There will be no discrimination based upon gender or religion or nationality or the nature of your legal practice or the geography from where you come from. We want broad and fair representation of all, but most of all, and I know I repeat myself, but we want people of the highest integrity and independence and honesty, not saints. None of us are saints, but we do want people of the highest integrity and the highest caliber, people who administer the rule of law, the equal rule of law in the most fair possible manner. And of course, as I say, you cannot be selected by our commission if you do not apply. And we cannot succeed in our mission if you do not apply. We need you to become a successful commission. We need you to make yourself known to us so that we can select the very best from among the very best. Admittedly, it's a difficult time for Ukraine, but our commission will press on, and we will do that all that we can to succeed in producing the very best judiciary, the most honorable, the most independent judiciary that we can for the people of Ukraine. The 3 international members of the commission, including myself, will be leaving when this process is completed. But we hope we'll leave you, and we hope our Ukrainian colleagues will leave you an outstanding qualifications commission, but it is up to you, if you choose to do so, to preserve and to maintain what legacy we have left. And all the information necessary to participate in our process is available on the website of the High Council, on the Facebook page of the Selection Commission, on the YouTube channel. We're almost everywhere except on TikTok, and maybe we'll be there before long too. And I say too that every applicant, to the best of our ability, will be treated respectfully and courteously and fairly. And you'll be given access to due process if you feel that you've not been treated fairly. And we also want you to know that it will be a confidential process when we're speaking about your candidacy. We will do everything to preserve and protect your reputations, just as we would want our own reputations protected in this process. The people who will be making applications to the commission, we know will be the people of the highest caliber, and we will do nothing to undermine them to treat them discourteously or to leave them with lesser reputations than when they applied to the commission. So thank you for honoring me by allowing me to be here. My colleague, Judge Mezentsev, has been a great colleague. He is totally committed to the commission. And once again, I emphasize that despite that we all come from different backgrounds and we have different views on many things in the law, we are of a common view on the need to strengthen the judiciary of your great country with people of the very highest caliber. And all six of us will move together in an effort to try to see that we leave the very best legacy we can for Ukraine. Thank you for your time.
Дякую, пане Стівене.
Thank you so much, Justice Markman. Even in your welcoming remarks, you've already alluded to a lot of valuable information, and this is exactly the right approach that we need, with due respect to all the candidates. And I'm sure this is something that you're going to be trying to cherish and foster and promote through your selection commission. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Judge.
And please watch this video right now.
Much advice given to us by the Parliament of Ukraine. What is expected of a candidate for the High Qualification Commission? The candidate must have 15 years of experience in the law. The candidate must have integrity, and the candidate must have professional knowledge and skill.
Він в подальшому буде обирати тих суддів, які повинні також.
In the future, we're going to be selecting the judges who will comply with all the criteria, like professionality and integrity.
In one person and provide somebody who is concerned about the judiciary in his country. And well, of course, we're not looking only at judges. We're also looking at other citizens and lawyers and professors and other people who are knowledgeable in the law.
They should be independent, they should be honest, they should be impartial, they should be incorruptible.
Щоб ця людина не
We
мала
want to make sure those people have no hidden backgrounds. We're going to be working together with National Anti-Corruption Bureau of Ukraine. We're going to be working with civil society organizations who will be providing us with information regarding the possible doubts about the person's integrity. This is a person who has to aim at raising and improving the attitude to the judiciary, to facilitate different processes, to make the lives of citizens easier, and to also assure quality so that the system becomes better and better every day.
To be transparent. So there will be published on public media.
Will be on video. Anybody can watch our interviews with any of the candidates. And I think they'll see that we're doing everything we can possibly do to make it a fair, open, and relevant process for strengthening the judiciary in Ukraine.
Участь міжнародних експертів ми дуже вітаємо.
Participation of the international experts is highly appreciated because their professional background, their life background, in synergy together with ours, builds understanding how the judiciary will develop in Ukraine.
And we are discussing with our Ukrainian colleagues. We have done everything what we can to come to the best result.
Всі рішення будуть прийматися на відкритих
All
засіданнях.
the decisions will be made on open meetings. Luckily, some of the people who already participate in the selection process, including our international experts, have already had experience of having participation in such selection processes. We have some of the members who used to work when selecting the high anti-corruption court judges in Ukraine, and this very positive experience hopefully will be reflected in the quality of the job that we're trying to pursue. It's going to serve as inspiration for us to be able to select the best of the best candidates. See, such a nice video, isn't it? I think everybody feels much more inspired right now after having watched this video. We all said we were all very positively set, and I'm sure each and every commission member understands the role, the importance of the role they play in this process. Despite we have no women on the commission, and you are gender blind, so to say, so far. But I still believe that you're going to be encouraging women's participation in the selection process. And this is going to be an important part of the job that you have to do. I can see Yevhen is already answering some of the questions in the chat. I'm not wasting my time. All right, that's great. There are no quotas that you mentioned. I hate this word quotas, honestly speaking. We need to assess those people based on their merits, on their professional qualities, openness, and of course, integrity. The association that represents women judges has one had one judge from the United States, Ruth Ginsburg, when we were discussing her book that Eurofem translated into Ukrainian, and I remember what she said. Justice Ginsburg, she was the second female in the Supreme Court of the United States. There are three of them altogether over the whole history. And she was once asked about somebody asked, how many women do you think have to be there in the federal court? She said 9. He said, wow, but there are 9 judges altogether in the court. And you said 9 have to be females. And she answered, well, if there are 9 males, you're not surprised. Why are you surprised if there are 9 females then? I only want to tell you a couple of words about the importance of gender balance and gender mainstreaming at HQCJ. As of the 1st of January this year, we have information, official data from the statistics regarding how many judges we have, how many female judges we have in Ukraine, how many of them are heads of courts, and what's the share of females altogether are in the judiciary altogether. So as of today, thanks to the Council of Judges, because they made the gender-based analysis, we have this information. Out of 5,022 judges, 54% are females. 2,733, I think. So from this figure, we can already see that there are more women judges than men in our judiciary. Regarding the administrative positions, like the heads and the deputy heads of the courts, out of them, 37% are women as heads of courts, and the remaining ones are men. Deputy heads, 65% are females, and 100 and so you see this kind of. Sorry, I couldn't hear all the figures. You can see that we have many more female judges in Ukraine than males. So you see, we have no quotas, and we are very close to perfect equality. When I was asked, how many women do you think have to be there on the HQCJ? I said, because there are 8 judges on the commission, and I wanted to say 4, and then I thought, no, 4 is kind of tricky. Let them be as many as would be required to represent the Ukrainian judiciary in a decent manner. Well, here we also have representatives of the Female Bar Association. Christina, I think that's you. Can you hear me, Christina? Yes, hello there. Hi, could you say a couple of words about your association? Thank you very much, Nadia. And thanks very much to our colleagues who have joined us today in response to your invitation. We also work hard to enhance women's visibility in the legal profession. And for us, it is important so that the females are not just so they do not just represent the legal profession, but also they fill very important jobs that really can have an impact on the development of our judicial sector. So we highly encourage women to participate in the selection process. And also regarding the quotas, I think there can be, this topic can be discussed for forever, but we know that in the European community and in the international community, they also already have quotas for women, especially if there are any kind of barriers and gaps in their societies regarding equal participation of men and women in filling different jobs. So the Ukrainian society is not an exclusion in this context. Unfortunately, we don't have any quotas right now for HQCJ. But we started in implementing quotas in the election process. And right now, they're talking about quotas in the supervisory boards in public companies and business environment. This is really important when support to women has to be provided. If we look at the data regarding the decision-making positions, the majority there is men. And that's been so historically. And there are still stereotypes in our society. So we, from our end, are trying to do everything possible to actually demonstrate that when we're talking about the legal profession, when we're talking about our community here, we have extremely high number of highly professional women who are ready to compete with their peers, male peers in the legal community. So we are trying to enhance this visibility so that those experts, female experts, are seen. And that's kind of support that we're trying to provide to them in all the ways possible. So we indeed translated the Justice Ginsburg's book. And we did the translation specifically to make the voices of female judges and female legal professionals to be heard. That's how we support women's participation. So we are constantly talking about different challenges women are facing and offering solutions to them that we have at our disposal. That's in a nutshell about what we work on and what kind of emphases we make. And talking about the judiciary, Nadia, probably I still remember this study that the Women Judges Association had done in trying to look at the gender-based analysis and gender-specific aspects. You've collected a lot of quantitative and qualitative indicators like gender sensitivity and gender mainstreaming. And I think that's the component that has to be really important when we're talking about this assessment process, when we're trying to assess the judges, their competencies and everything else. So we need to also be gender sensitive in the selection process to be able to identify the problems that exist in the Ukrainian society in reaching gender equality. These are the main things that I'd like to underline. Thank you. Thank you very much, Christina. Thanks a lot for what you've shared with us. Indeed, we highly appreciate the partnership that we've built together. I can see there are questions to Mr. Stephen Markman from Irina Żółtobruch. If that's about gender, let us finish with the gender issues. Or if you have any questions about the selection process, I'm going to give you an opportunity to ask your questions in the next part that we're starting shortly. We will talk about the stages of this competition and also specific features of that. Thank you very much, Irina. My question wasn't about gender. That's why I'm going to ask my question a little bit later. Fine. All right, let's move to what's really interesting for us. Well, let's talk about different phases of this selection process, its specific features, etc. So we're going to give
Мезенцев, а також пан Стівен.
the floor to Yevhen Mezentsev first, and then you can ask your questions in the chat. I'm going to be monitoring the chat. And also, we will move to questions after Mr. Mezentsev's intervention. Thank you. Let us build our work in the following manner. Well, because I'm going to be talking very briefly about some of the basic things. We're not discussing those truisms a lot. We've been working on the documents since November last year. We never even counted how much time we've spent together to have drafted all the documents. We had so many meetings, and it was a participatory process. I can talk about this for days, but if I'm talking too much about something different that you don't want to hear, you can stop me whenever you want and ask me questions and to put me back on the right track. Actually, I would like to tell you a bit about some of the key components of the selection process. First and foremost, we need to select not just 16 judges and 16 non-judges, or 16 women and 16 men. Our idea in principle is to select the really best candidates to be recommended, the people who will be following the highest professional competency and integrity standards. The work of the HQCJ is not like the job of a judge. This is kind of different, and the individuals have to be very well balanced, highly qualified, legal professionals, first of all, to do this job right. So our main objective is to select the really best of the best candidates. If we have 20 women, if we have 10 women and 6 men, that's absolutely fine. There's no problem about that whatsoever. If there are 10 men and 6 women, and all of them are really decent people, that's all fine as well. I'm going to be happy if we really manage to select the best ones and the most dignified people. You know, like they say in the US, the presidents come and leave, and the federal judges are elected forever, for their lifetime. That's why we would like to make sure we have the best professional people in line with the best international standards. Those judges that will be then selected by HQCJ after the selection process will also be responsible for the future of Ukraine. Our process is different from what they had at the Supreme Court and at the High Anti-Corruption Court. What's the main difference? The main difference is that we do not have any exams. We do not do any exams. We're not forcing our candidates to write theses or essays. No, we're not demanding any, we do not have any score points. There are only 2 criteria that we use, and they're very comprehensive. That's professional competency and integrity. That's what the law says, and that's why in our methodology, we already defined what kind of criteria have to be the most important ones, and what it means to be a person of integrity and a person of professional competence. I'm sorry. I'm gonna make sure my sound is getting better. Okay. We need to actually, first of all, check the document quality, the quality of the documents that will be submitted. There is a number of requirements to the application form. We had doubts about the list of the documents that will have to be submitted and attached to the application form, but the result that you can now see
Таким, що майже відпрацьований ідеально, оскільки ми передивилися всі закони, всі підзаконні нормативні акти, які стосуються цієї
So there is a lot of work that we've done together. There are some of the issues that we've have considered already, like the criminal record, etc. Regarding this criminal record proof, even if it's not mentioned in the official announcement that we posted on the High Council of Justice's website, we still need that. An individual who wants to acquire such a high status as the member of the High Qualification Commission of Judges should have no criminal, no convictions. Article 94 of the law says that an individual who becomes a candidate to HQCJ should have no previous conviction, no prior convictions. And this person should not have any corruption records. Even if you were, for instance, if you had any liability for any kind of corrupt action, it can create reasonable doubts regarding your integrity. Because according to the law and according to our internal regulation, we have to check all the criteria of the candidates following the principle of a reasonable doubt. If in any documents or any proofs we find information, or we find this information from open sources, that there can be reasonable doubt regarding any integrity of the candidate, believe me, you're not going to be able to pass to the interviews, to make it to the interviews. There were also questions about what kind of decisions, dated and numbered, has to be mentioned in the application form that you submit. So there is an application form and motivational letter, and actually your consent about handling your personal data. That was a good question, and we already answered a similar one on Facebook. So the decision was made in our first official meeting of the selection commission. It took place on the 21st of January, 2022 on Friday. Because somebody asked whether it was a 22nd or 21st. No, it was on a Friday, January 21st, I'm sorry. And our decision in the minutes, so the minutes was, the decision was number 9. That's the official minutes document that we have released already. Plus, the documents that you're submitting for the participation in the selection process also contain certain technical requirements. You can submit your documents via regular mail, and if you do so, please do that in advance, because where to send the documents to? It's the Secretariat of HCJ, Studentska 12A Street. And those documents will be accepted before March the 4th. Please do not forget that after March the 4th, we're going to have a lot of holidays, days off. If you send your documents via regular mail on the 3rd of March, then it means we will receive them after the days off. So to make it easier for us, please send it early, at least till the 1st of March, so that those documents can be received by the 4th. So after the 4th of March, no documents will be accepted, because otherwise we will slow down all the procedures and processes, and we don't want that. We are trying to do everything possible to make sure the process goes smoothly and timely. It is in our best interest to make this process as fast as possible. Presently, we cannot sacrifice quality for the sake of speed. So we need to follow all the procedures, and they have to be clear and in line with the letter and the spirit of the law. The documents are submitted in two forms, both in writing and in electronic form. The electronic forms can be submitted to the email address commission@hcj.ua. I could be wrong, but you can actually check the announcement. Please look at this, and you can send your information there and your docs. Also, please keep in mind that if you are submitting the hard copies, then please have them properly signed and dated. Because if we have any doubts about the relevance of the documents and their quality, the commission members can actually require you to supply more documents for the interview. All the electronic documents have to be submitted in the PDF format. The motivational letter will be also submitted in the PDF format. Yeah, your sound is very poor. Well, I don't know what I can do about it because I'm not a technical geek. Yeah, it's much better now. And now you're off. You're muted. Yeah, we have it now. Sorry. That's the technical problem that I have. Unfortunately, we don't have any modern hardware here. Well, the motivational letter has to be submitted both in the open document format or Microsoft Word, and also in PDF. Why? Why is the motivational letter is paid so much attention to? Filling the autobiography is no difficult because there are not many criteria there. There was a question about which family members have to be indicated in the autobiography. Please mention only those. Well, according to the legislation, family members are all the close people and the people that you mentioned as family members in your declaration, in your asset declaration that you submit to NAPS. Please mention those individuals as well here for us, because we need to understand your close environment, and who actually live with you. And again, this will be important whenever we consider your asset declarations. That's regarding the autobiography. It's kind of simple one. As for years of experience, there was a question about this. How many years should we indicate? The years that we have in insurance databases, or indicate the number of years that you have on your employment record. Well, the employment record is still a source of information for us, so please indicate the years of experience that you have in your employment record, and it's going to prevail, of course. However, it's not the only option. As compared to other documents, we can actually accept any information that you have, and this should be proven information. Regarding judges, that's easier because since the appointment, we also already have the records available. For lawyers and other legal professionals, this issue is much more difficult. Each has to be verified by, the years of experience have to be verified by the respective proofs and licenses. that give the right to deliver legal services. Again, like I said, for the lawyers and other legal professionals, we're going to use the same approaches that they did in the competition to the Supreme Court and the higher anti-corruption court. Mr. Yevhen,
В зв'язку з цими вашими повідомленнями щодо умов,
given your conversation right now,
об'єднати в одне, які
I'd like to
ви
put two
бачите.
questions together in one that we've received on the chat. Regarding the recommendation letters,
Не переходили, чи ви щось окремо
are
скажете?
we talking about them separately or not? No, of course I will. I will tell you a bit about it. That's a very important one to consider recommendations. If there are no recommendation letters, is that a reason for denial or not? This is actually what Katerina just asked in the chat. What if you are recommended by a judge who also participates in the selection process? Well, it's going to be conflict of interest. But again, this is a disputable issue. Let us move to the motivational letter, and then I'm going to tell you a bit about that, because there are a lot of things that there are important things that have to be mentioned there. Actually, the motivational letter is the most complicated part of these pre-selection procedure. It's already like an exam to a certain extent that will disclose a personality in front of the selection commission. The person can demonstrate attitudes and to the judicial issues and reflect on his or her thinking. Well, of course, we do not, if in case we know any candidate personally, it leads to the conflict of interest and we have to recuse based on the proven information. So, with regards to the recusals and self-recusals, I think Stephen is much better placed to tell you about this because he was involved in, he participated a lot. I mean, he was deeply engaged in the development of this part of the documentation. A motivational letter is like a bridge that helps the selection commission members learn more about the candidate. This way, we discover the candidate and learn more about the candidate's vision. Each and every candidate will be characterized by many different institutions, the anti-corruption bodies, etc., maybe mass media as well, maybe civil society organizations. But anyways, for each and every candidate, we're going to have information from the outside sources. Of course, we have to compare this information in a balanced manner. So we need to check and compare the information from the internal sources and external ones, and also ask the candidate how he can or she can see this situation. So please treat the motivational letter in a very responsible way. We have some blocks with the possibility to include 250 words for each block. This also helps us realize if a person can actually open up the information about him or herself in a concise and logical manner. There was also a question about the motivational letter with regards to whether it is worth following the same order as it is prescribed in the template, or and whether it is important to number those separate blocks. My first answer is yes, and the second answer is yes too. It's not done accidentally. Do not write volumes of books. Do not write long. We need to have them concise, because some of those blocks are similar. If you looked at the template, block 4 and 5 and block 3 and 9 are similar. But don't get confused. We just need to understand if the candidates see the difference between those blocks. As for the recommendations, well, there were a lot of questions about that. People asked whether recommendation letters are mandatory. Well, what I can tell you about it is, like any document, any other documents, they are not mandatory, but they are good to have. So if the person fails to provide any recommendation letters, can this be the evidence that this candidacy has to be declined? Not automatically, but actually it means that the person does not want to disclose information about his or her integrity, because motivation is also closely linked to integrity and to how this person's close friends or people surrounding that person. Somebody asked, like, where can I get 3 lawyers with immaculate reputation? There is a presumption. So does it mean that there is a presumption that all the lawyers have bad reputation? That's not true. There are a lot of lawyers who follow all the principles of integrity, but the question is how to put it in the best way in the motivational letter. It is required to have 3 people who can actually prove your immaculate reputation and not theirs. So the person who recommends you may not have a perfect reputation, but what we would not like to have is that the person who recommends you for this very responsible position to be in the possible or potential conflict of interests. Not personal conflicts, but conflict of interests. This person should not be your subordinate. If you asked your assistant judge to write a recommendation letter about you, that's gonna be weird, because this is your near subordinate. And of course, this person depends on you to a certain extent. That's why it would not be appropriate to be recommended by someone like this. Of course, we cannot give preferences to people who are going to have a recommendation from highest officials like the Minister of Justice or Deputy Chief Justice of the Supreme Court. Well, that's great if you can be recommended by such individuals, but that's not going to give you any preferential treatment. None of the documents that you're submitting is going to have a greater importance and value versus the others. Like any evidence lodged to the court, it has to be assessed in a balanced manner. Thank you, Yevhen. If you allow me, I could give the floor to Mr. Stephen Markman. And you please write what people have already asked in the chat. Please, Mr. Stephen, if you can explain to us what you think about the conditions and what's the most important thing that the candidates have to pay attention to if they want to apply for this election.
Thank you, thank you, Judge. I agree with everything that Judge Mezentsev has said about the application process. I would just like to add 2 things to supplement his comments. Many of the questions that I've seen on chat and otherwise focus either on questions of compliance with the procedures or how to address the substance of the questions, such as the motivation question. Concerning the procedures, again, I agree with everything my colleague has said, but I would emphasize as well that we are not trying to play any tricks on anyone. We are looking for reasonable and responsible and good faith answers. And if those are done, we think your application will be given the consideration that it deserves. We are trying to qualify applicants, not to disqualify applicants. So we ask you to read clearly what is said in the applications, and exercise your best faith effort to respond to those questions. Concerning the substantive questions that you have, I would also say I agree with my colleague. I would add, though, that before you answer the questions or put together the motivation response, it would be wise to read the methodology that we have. The methodology explains what we are looking for. And as I've said, and my colleague has agreed, we are looking for people of integrity and honor and honesty and independence. So when you understand those aspects of our methodology, you might consider those as you explain your motivations. I think that would be just common sense to try to make your motivations communicate how you see yourselves and how you see your attributes. In other words, these questions and the motivations give you an opportunity to speak for yourselves. Many of our questions ask you to respond to what we want to know about you, what we want to know about your background and experience. But these questions that my colleague has spoken about give you the opportunity to speak to us and let us know what you see as being most important. In other words, they give you an opportunity to say, there are many very fine applicants in the process, and there will be. There will be many fine applicants. And those of you in this audience, I'm confident will also be very fine applicants. But this gives you a chance to say, why you? Why among all the fine applicants should we look in your direction? We're not going to be choosing among good applicants and bad applicants, I don't believe. I think we're going to be choosing among good applicants. And you should speak to yourself, why should I be viewed favorably by this commission among many, many good applicants? So I would just add to my colleagues' very thoughtful comments a couple of those additional points. On the question of conflicts of interest, of course, we see that as a very important part of the process. Not only a very important part of our selection process, but a very important part of any responsible judicial process. And what we have to say about conflicts of interest is that each of the six of us may have conflicts in evaluating some people. I think for obvious reasons, our Ukrainian colleagues are likely to have more conflicts than the three of us who come from other countries and know fewer people in Ukraine. But any one of us might have a conflict of interest, and we shouldn't participate in those circumstances. And there are procedures for not participating. But if we choose not to participate, or if we choose to participate in a difficult case, it's not exclusively our decision, but it's the decision of the entire commission. And the commission will also consider in that decision that we want to make sure there is a fair process left in place after one or maybe even two people disqualify themselves. And we set up some special procedures to make sure that the entire commission can operate even if one or two of our colleagues has some kind of conflict. So we recognize the importance that people not participate who have conflicts, but also the importance of a fair process for a candidate who may have one or two people who can't participate in consideration of his qualifications. I hope it's clear what I'm trying to say.
It's absolutely clear. Якщо дозволите, я продовжу. Дивіться,
Дякую.
Thank you very much, Justice Markman.
Пане суддя. Дуже
Thank you.
It was very comprehensive and very interesting to hear about how you want to handle any potential conflict of interest. Please, and that's a very important thing that you stressed. Indeed, our candidates have to read the methodology closely because that's an important document and it's going to help each and every candidate to understand what the selection commission members want from them. Okay, let us then continue our discussion. Mr. Yevhen, you wanted to say something? Yes, regarding the methodology, check the methodology document. It's not just a simple document, that's a very good tip for you. That's a very good recommendation about what you can do. Actually, it lists all the requirements, whatever you need for the motivational letter and everything else. Well, I'm going to finish with recommendations because that's what many people are asking for. Irina just mentioned here in the chat that some of the people do not support the idea of engaging international selection commission members. But, well, that's a wrong attitude. I'm sure that's a very good contribution that we have international colleagues here on our commission. Regarding recommendations, once again, we need to be able to contact that person who recommends you. If that's a notary, or that's a judge, or that's a scholar, or someone else, we still want to be able to be in touch with this person whenever we have
Якщо
any
буде
about the
писати
candidate.
рекомендаційний лист ваша мама, то це буде трішечки сприйнято.
Of course, we do not encourage you to have your mother writing a letter of recommendation for you.
Конфлікту інтересів і його запобігання, і, ну, скажімо так, так як не потрапити у конфлікт інтересів. Тому не
That's an obvious conflict of interest.
буде мати для нас як заздалегідь встановлену силу. Нам треба
So no document, and this is important to mention, no document will suppress the other documents.
які, я маю на увазі документи,
Regarding documents, and specifically if we talk about judges,
проведення вами перевірок і визначення вас на доброчесність раніше. Звичайно, багато суддів вже
of course, many judges have already passed the security checks and background checks.
комісії попереднього складу і висновки
And
громадської ради доброчесності
they received conclusions from the
доброчесності і таке інше.
Public Integrity Council.
І позитивний висновок
Both positive and negative conclusions of those bodies will not have any valid purpose for us. We will try to establish your integrity and professional competencies separately based on the information that we receive. There are a lot of questions as well about the annexes to the application form, like the medical certificate. I don't know why people are trying to challenge this. The document says that the person needs to prove his or her health, but it doesn't mean that the person with the disability cannot participate. On the contrary, the most important thing that we're trying to pursue is you need to have a psychiatric certificate and the drug specialist, that you are not, which is the evidence that you are not on the drug addiction record. So you need to prove that you have no addiction and your mental health is good. If you have any kind of record like this of for prior addiction or anything, with all my due respect, you will not be admitted to the competition because that's obvious, isn't it? I'm not sure. I don't think this is something really strange. You've seen these requirements a lot. Whenever you want to receive your driver's license, or if you want to have a permission for firearms, you still have to submit those documents. So there is nothing strange in that. That's why I'm just a bit surprised why people are asking about this. So do I understand that there's another question in the chat from Ghana, and it says, did I understand you clearly that the recommendations have to be attached to the application form? Yes, we need 3 recommendations from people who are not your family members or close friends. Make sure you do not have any conflict of interest with the person that recommends you. Do not, once again, regarding the motivational letter, do not write long novels. It should not be the war and the peace, you know? It should be quite concise and quite short. I'm sure we're going to have a lot great lawyers. I'm sure we're going to have hundreds of them, and you understand that this process will be quite challenging for us. Processing information will take a lot of time and effort. Indeed, we have our staff, indeed, we have our assistants that will be helping us to put together the files and process tons of information about these candidates. We have, in our commission, we have 3 committees. Each of the committees will be randomly processing the candidates' information. We will be checking the referential information, and then all the referential information will be discussed by all the commission members when making the decision about the admission of those individuals to the interviews. To admit 300 or 400 of candidates to that's possible, but it's going to take years. It's going to take, I don't know, 2 years. If you just spend 1 hour per candidate, and we're going to have the interviews with all the 6 of us present, not separately, then of course, on a regular day, we will be able to only have 8 people. Even with 64 candidates that will be interviewed, it's still going to take a lot of time. We have a question from Irina Zhovtobrus that she wanted to ask to Stephen Markman. Are you going to be asking the question yourself, or let me just read it for you? Well, if you allow me, I'm going to ask this question personally because it might not be very clear in writing. Please go ahead then. My name is Irina Zhovtobrus. I'm a justice of the Supreme Court and the member of the Women's Judge Association, but at the same time, I'm the member of the All Ukrainian Association of Administrative Judges. As part of these organizations, I was asked many times, and that's the question that many judges and other legal professionals are concerned about. When trying to defend the independence of our system of justice, just recently we've seen publications where many Dutch organizations, oh sorry, not Dutch, but many civil society organizations criticized some of the commission members that they create obstacles for the Ukraine's judicial reform. When they publish their articles, but I'm just wondering about the attitude of the international citizens, I mean, international commission members. What do you think about this? Do you share the opinion that impartiality of the association members to the future of the country and the future of the judiciary excludes the possibility for their participation in the selection process and be recommended to such institutions like HQCJ?
That's my question, right? Well, if I understand the question, we have met on at least 2 occasions with members of civil society, both the international members of the selection commission and the Ukrainian members of the commission. And there has been very, very productive conversation and discussion at both of those meetings. I have not heard any criticisms of the members of the commission from the civil society members, and I've not heard any criticisms of civil society by the members of the commission. And that's the same in the private discussions that we've had. I'm aware that civil society is includes organizations that have strong perspectives on things, and that's good. And it's good that bar associations have strong perspectives on things. And we can distinguish strong perspectives from insults or criticisms that are outside the pale. But I agree, if there is a member of the commission who feels that they can't be fair-minded in evaluating somebody, either because that person has been critical of them or some organization to which that member has been critical of them, they might, in all fairness, consider not participating. That would be a judgment they would have to make with the eventual concurrence of the entire commission. But each one of us is probably, in the course of what might be several hundred interviews, have to make difficult decisions about whether we can be fair-minded and balanced in evaluating candidates, just as we expect the candidates to be fair-minded in carrying out their obligations. But thus far, I certainly haven't seen any sense among the 6 commissioners that they've been subject to such criticism from particular individuals that they are not going to be able to participate. But if I'm wrong and they feel that they can't do so, I'm sure that they will do the right thing, just as they expect candidates to do the right thing in those kinds of circumstances. Have I understood the question well?
Дякую. Дякую. Я думаю, пані Ірина, щоб
I think Irina would like to specify something. Indeed, I just wanted to specify something here. No, we were not trying to blame anyone of anything. But my question was, do you think that the people who considered the engagement of international experts into the Ukraine's judiciary reform can they participate in the selection, in this selection process?
Oh, I understand. Well, that's a good question, and I'm glad it's been raised. I am, of course, one of the 3 international members, and I'm aware that there's been some criticism of the structure of the commission, and I understand that criticism. It's a very unusual commission that we have. We think there are good reasons for it, but I certainly can understand why many people might be concerned about the commission. I am aware of those criticisms. I am not aware of those criticisms for many particular candidates that we might see. And if those criticisms are such that I don't think I can be fair-minded, I certainly would not participate myself, even though I think that these are matters where reasonable people can disagree. I can understand reasonable people thinking the commission should be structured differently. I can understand reasonable people thinking that this kind of commission is necessary in some respects. I did not write the rules of the commission. I'm honored to be on the selection committee, very honored. I'm honored to make a small contribution, at least I hope we'll be making at least a small contribution to the interests of Ukraine. But I understand the criticisms and I understand the responses to the criticisms. And I don't think that any one of the 6 commissioners, whether they've been the subject of applause by a group or criticism by a group, would feel that that's a basis for putting thumbs on the scale of justice in evaluating a candidate.
дякую за відповідь.
Thank you very much for your answers, Justice Markman. Thanks a lot.
В чаті у нас є запитання.
We have another question in the chat.
Паралельно надає відповідь
that Mr. Mezentsev is trying to answer in writing in parallel. So I understand that we are now only seeing 2 commission members, but in parallel, I can see these 2 commissioners. They work for all the 6 ones because one is answering in writing, another one is answering orally, and you're so productive. We can already see that. Nadia, I was just trying to speed up the process because we're limited in time. We can't sit here till 8 in the evening. I would, and so would Stephen, I'm sure, but you know, we cannot make it till too late. We still have to share a lot of interesting information with you. I'm going to be only telling you about some of the most important things because we are really running out of time. Look, regarding the language, I already answered this on the chat. The language question is really acute. I already stressed that you need to get the certificate early enough, but not to let people feel limited and not to make them dependent on the issuing authority, because this body is not working properly. I received information last Saturday that this language commission can be disrupted and stopped for an undetermined time. So not to make this problem even worse for our selection process, we're going to give an opportunity for the candidates to provide the certificate, the language certificates 5 days prior to the interview. You will all be informed in advance that you are selected for the interviews, and you're going to be one of the 64 candidates that will be interviewed. And only then, after you receive this notice, you will have to provide the language certificate to the commission. You need to prove that you have a strong command of the Ukrainian language and that you are in line with the legislation, because that's the law that requires all the HQCJ members to have perfect command of the Ukrainian language. It was not something that we've developed alone. Regarding the asset declaration, well, why do we have very few applications received so far? There's only one individual who has officially applied, even though it is the 14th of February, and the competition was announced 10 days ago. It's just because there are very few candidates who have submitted their applications because there are requirements regarding the asset declarations, and asset declarations can be only provided by the tax administration as the fiscal authority. And they release all the asset declarations 50 days after this fiscal period begins, which is the 20th of February. And that's Sunday. So only on the Sunday, the 20th of February, we will start receiving those applications. So on the 21st, 2nd, and 3rd, people will be receiving, our candidates will be receiving their officially signed asset declarations. So I'm sure we're going to have the busiest time in the last week of February and the first week of March. That's when we expect to be receiving a lot of applications. It only stumbles because of the specific nature of the declarations. Yogan, I'm going to be asking everybody, do you mind if we extend this meeting to 10 to 15 more minutes? If you don't mind, then please. Is there tacit consent here? Well, there are a lot of questions that we would like to ask Sir Yevhen about. Katerina asked whether that the judges will only have their last year's referential information about the salaries. They will only be receiving this at the beginning of March. You'll be able, like I said, to see all these proofs already after the 20th of February. Last week, I tried to actually fill out my asset declaration for the previous year, and I have seen that the asset declaration form has changed. I even had issues filling it out.
На оці питання, які
Yevhen, I would also suggest you to answer your questions that you have,
значну частину відповідей, які у нас є,
that you can
ви
see.
маєте доступ до цього.
Я бачу, пишу, але я
Ви бачите
Well, you can see that there are questions on the chat, but
таке запитання, от я починаю з 9-го.
let me start with one of the questions here.
Чи її зразок наявний? Я буду озвучувати.
What about the application form? Is there an application form that is previously developed? Well, look, we already answered this one, but we just developed this application form for our candidates to have like a template.
на сайті ВРП.
So we already thought about publishing this template on the HCJ's website, and we already did.
Залишати текст, писати прочерк, чи текст
Так,
можна
писати, що цих документів вони є відсутніми.
If
Все.
you do not have some of the documents that are required, you just write not available. That's it.
Маємо відповідь. Ні. Форма декларації. От
What about the declaration form? There's one question here on the chat.
форма, яку ми подаємо в НАЗК.
Whether the form that we submit to the National Anti-Corruption Agency, is it the same form? Yes. You just fill it out you fill it out on the website in an electronic form, fill it out, print it, sign it, and submit it. That's it, like any other copy. You have to have it signed. It's very easy to verify this form through the online interface. It's all available, so it's not an issue. So please follow that same procedure when submitting your declarations. Well, regarding the recommendations from lawyers, you already answered this. Is it worth providing copies of certificates, whatever, diplomas, whatever you want? You can even submit your, I don't know, Mother Teresa's order. I don't know, whatever you want. You need to actually provide every evidence that proves your competency and your integrity as well. Any documents that you can attach. All the letters of gratitude, whatever your credentials are, maybe your thesis, maybe your PhD, you can also provide this information to us. Let me tell you a bit about the steps in this process. With the steps, that's very easy and it's prescribed in our documents, but there are some nuances. There is this selection procedure. As we have received the documents, we will be analyzing them, and we will be preparing a certain referential document. This referential document will contain information about the candidate, and all the candidates will have, we will all be preparing these documents for each and every candidate. Testing. We might do the testing and we might not. It all depends on our decision. That's just the intelligence test or the IQ test. Not all the commission members have voted in favor of the IQ test, but it's going to depend on how many candidates will apply. If we have 2,000 candidates, of course, we will have to do something about it. And therefore, probably we might want to vet out some of the candidates through the test. Just for that purpose. So this question is still the question of options and alternatives. I'm not sure that the testing will be done. Maybe in the future ones, if there are too many candidates, we're going to have testing. What about the background and security check? Yep, we're going to be referring to this information. We will be also checking the information from the open sources and that is provided by civil society. We will be collecting information from the Supreme Court, the police, the High Council of Justice.
Після того, як
And after
будуть завершені всі ці процедури,
we do all these procedures regarding this, the special and security check,
або так
and background, I mean, and security check.
сумнівів щодо
I-
доброчесності і професійної компетентності,
If there are no
буде проведено відбір
reasonable doubts, we will be selecting those 64 candidates who will be eligible for interviews. As Stephen mentioned, we use the positive approach. We do not disqualify the candidates, but we want to qualify the candidates. So we don't want to, in no decision of ours, we will mention something like, this person is no good or this person is disqualified. No, we're not going to do that. We will be encouraging the candidates to be qualified. If, for instance, somebody is not selected after the interviews, this person will just get a notice that you haven't made it to the recommendation or something like this. For each individual, for each candidate, we will have certain questions about the background, or previous employment, the financial proceeds, and those of your close family members, etc. So every individual who will be participating in the interviews, there'll be the first introduction, there'll be the presentation, self-presentation, and at least 2 rounds of questions from every commission member. The information that we are collecting regarding each and every candidate can be classified, and it's not going to be disclosed. I mean, at least, especially if it has to do with personal data, or if the disclosure can be harmful. So we don't want to put anyone at risk. That's why we will keep all the information classified. You will receive, before the interview, you will receive a notice that you are eligible for the interviews. We will be selecting the candidates neither in either alphabetical order or any other order. It's going to be a random selection, and it's going to be done automatically for impartiality purposes. Regarding, once again, the submission of the certificate, language certificate, you need to submit it 5 days prior to the interview. Now, the interview itself, okay, it's gonna be once we do the interviews, we will have a discussion, and these deliberations will be kept in secret. I don't think somebody has to know why some of the candidates were declined, or we don't want to do that in an open manner. The deliberations will be closed. So we don't want to make our discussions public. I think this is reasonable, isn't it?
Щодо переходу до
And regarding the recommendations, I hope that the letters of recommendation will be able to sorry, it was not about the recommendations, but about the selection process. We hope to do that before summer. Hopefully, we will be able to already recommend those candidates, and then the High Council of Justice will have to do their part of the job to then officially appoint all those judges and lawyers to be the commission members, HQCJ members. We just want to make sure they start working productively and effectively.
Вона є піонером.
Well, our country has been pioneering a lot of competitions like this.
У нас напрацьовується сила селена методик, які раніше
We have a lot of methodologies that are brand new and that have never been there in the rest of the world. Hopefully, our experience will be of great value for the other countries as well.
дуже непоганим буде
I'm
використовувати.
sure it's going to be a very good practice to be used in other jurisdictions. Indeed, the judicial reform is a painful process, and many here in Ukraine would like to avoid that. But I believe that everything that's happening is happening for better from this because we are working for the future generations,
Максимально демократичні процедури в нашій країні і
for the future of our country, to build a proper judiciary in Ukraine and to demonstrate to the rest of the world that we remain to be open and public authorities are built in Ukraine in a most democratic manner possible. Regarding the gender mainstreaming and gender balancing, even in our court where I work, we have the ground rule.
голова і два заступники, ми обираємо з дотриманням принципу гендерної рівності.
We always
Обиралися
follow gender equality principle
тільки чоловіки. Завжди або один
when
заступник,
appointing the chief judge, chief or deputy chief judge.
жінка була обрана головою суду.
Just recently,
Чоловіками.
a woman was appointed to be the chief judge, and her two deputies are men.
Всі вікові категорії,
So we try to actually keep everything in balance from the gender standpoint.
вони мають бути представлені у кожному державному органі.
Diversity and equality have to be there in each and every government agency and in each and every authority, not to create any kind of disbalances or bias. Thank you.
Будь ласка, я буду відповідати.
Дякую, пані.
Okay.
Ірина. Це якраз у вас була відповідь на питання. Чи
You just answered a
в
question
вашому списку, чи
whether
є у членів конкурсної
the selection commission members
будь-які стереотипи?
have any kind of stereotypes or they're free from stereotypes
Зрозуміло, що таке
on a gender basis.
І ви
I
до
understand you don't have those,
цього підходите.
and as you explained to us.
Запитання, які у нас були по
There are more questions
попередньо, я би
that we
хотіла
received
ще
previously,
на
but
це питання
I would like to
ще
actually
відповідь.
you to answer another question.
Хто має завіряти ті всі копії?
Who will have to verify all the
Управління
copies of
персоналу.
documents?
Я думаю, що це відділ кадрів чи управління кадрів.
Або
Там
служба кадрів цілком достатньо.
Well, if you are officially working as a judge or any other legal professional, then your
Фактично,
HR department can actually give you all the proofs of your
чи може директор
work record.
директор адвокатського об'єднання
Your immediate manager can actually sign these papers to prove your years of experience.
долю людини в
That's an important part of our objective.
особи не подасть протягом 5 днів. За 5 днів, не протягом, за 5 днів.
Well, there is another thing. If the person fails to provide the language certificate,
Вважаю, що ні, але ми будемо
um,
вимагати, щоб люди, які
this person will not be able to participate in the selection.
і рекомендували
I encourage you to please handle this issue as soon as possible.
можливість отримання чи не отримання цього
Of course, you cannot influence the issuance of this certificate.
цей іспит не складає.
For instance, if you fail the test, the language test, then the next chance you're going to have is in 4 months. So if you haven't done it right away from the first time, you're not going to be able to participate in the selection process.
Може йтися. За великим рахунком, вимога щодо володіння державною мовою
There is a Ukrainian language command requirement.
вимагається
and
виключно
It
для
requires
конкурс,
the
якої конкурсної? Вищої кваліфікаційної комісії суддів.
the HQCJ members to have the strongest command. And if we even read the law,
Суддя з цим документом.
you even have to provide all these documents, all these proofs, language proofs, whenever you want to be a candidate to any of the government agency.
Спілкуватися було б взагалі
You have to convince the commission members that you have the strong command of the Ukrainian language. That's a requirement by the legislation. Thank you. Thank you very much. Well, I'd like to make some conclusions of the today's meeting. I will first give the floor to Mr. Stephen Markman and for the conclusion remarks, and then to Yevhen Mezentsev. Please, Stephen, the floor is yours. So what's your assessment of our today's meeting, and what do you think about that? What would you like to share with us in closing?
Well, thank you very much for the question, President Stefaniev. This has really been a wonderful event. I've, of course, looked at the list of the participants. It's extremely impressive. It is a real honor to address people of the caliber who are participating today and to join my colleague, Judge Mientsev. I guess what I'd most like to say is something I said at the beginning, and if I repeat myself, I apologize. But I urge you to consider participating in this process, not only on your own personal behalf, but to emphasize again, our commission cannot be successful if we do not succeed in identifying a broad range of the best equipped people to serve on the qualifications commission that we can. In other words, when you participate in this process, you are not doing so exclusively on your own behalf or even on behalf of the commission's interest, but you really are doing something very important for the judiciary of your country and for its future as a free, independent, sovereign, modern country with an international class judiciary. No country, in my view, can be successful if they're not committed to the rule of law, the equal rule of law. And that's really what's at stake in this whole process. I don't want to overstate that, but I do think that given what we think needs to be done in Ukraine in enhancing and strengthening its judiciary, we will not succeed in doing that unless a good many people who are in this audience today put themselves into this process. And if they do so, and if they read the documents that we've put on our site, the methodology, the selection regulations, the rules of procedure, I think they have all the clues that they need as to what we're looking for in terms of your statements to our questions, your expression of your motivations, and once again, why you among good candidates should be selected by this commission. So we are here to urge you to participate only because we think that the country would be deprived of many of its best candidates if you were to choose not to do so. Thank you. Thank you.
Дякую вам, пане Стівен.
Thank you so much, Justice Markman. And thank you, Mr. Mezentsev. I can see you're being so active on the chat. Yeah, I'm trying to write the answers to the questions. Yes, that's very good because we put everything on record and we will be able to look at the questions and answers once again. I'd like to also thank all our women judges and also female representatives of other legal professions for your active engagement, for your participation in today's webinar. Thank you for asking very interesting questions. And in support of Mr. Stephen Markman's words, I really invite you to submit your applications and become candidates. Please, if you don't want to do that, encourage your colleagues who deserve that to participate. It's going to help us to have great candidates who then, when successful, become HQCJ members. And the fact that this selection will be impartial and independent, I realized it myself today. Thank you very much for this. Thanks for sharing a lot of valuable information. And this is the actual end of our today's meeting. Thanks a lot. Much appreciated.
Дякую.
Okay, Steven, looking forward to our next meeting. See ya. Все, до побачення всім. Щасливо. До побачення.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Judge.
Thank you. Thank you, Judge, too.